Hey everyone, welcome back to Blessings. Today I have with me Michael Landau. Michael is the founder of Persistent Growth, a mindfulness community where people can use simple techniques for only 3 minutes a day to engage in self-care that he promises will improve your health and compound over time to provide lasting wellness. Michael is also an accomplished pianist who studied piano in Vienna. But after 30 years as an accompanist, he decided to make a major life change and go all in as a wellness entrepreneur. He's here to tell us his story and let us know how easy it is to achieve a state of well-being and how we can do it. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Mitzi, for having me.
So tell us, where are you in the world right now?
I'm in Chile, about an hour and a half from the capital, from Santiago.
Mm-hmm.
Countryside, a small town, a nice place to live.
A nice place to be. That's wonderful. So I want to go back to the beginning and just find out a little bit about your life and how you got to this point of where you are in what you're doing with people to help them now. I find that people who are in the healing profession, helping others, they usually have interesting stories and things that have led them to that place that are really specific. And so we're going to dig into that. So where were you born?
I was born in Tel Aviv, Israel. I grew up in Tel Aviv. Yeah, as you said, I played the piano since I was a kid. So I took classes since I was 7 years old, but it took me quite a while to think of it as a profession.
Okay.
As I grew up, I had no idea what to do with my life. And I was never inclined to become a concert pianist, to sit many hours at home alone, practice the piano, reach perfection as much as possible, and then go on stage and play it. It wasn't attractive to me, so I never went in that direction. Just by coincidence, I started playing with people. I had a cellist friend, I had a singer neighbor, and I started accompanying them. And this is a completely different way of being a pianist.
Wow.
It's a different specialty. It's a different line of work. It looks different. I spent most of the time playing with people and working on their repertoire. So I found it interesting. I found it really appealing. And I found out that it is a profession, that it exists. I went to Vienna to study that, to become an accompanist.
Very interesting. So you didn't want to be alone playing the piano all by yourself, but when you found that you could do it with other people, it became more appealing, right?
Yeah. It was quite different, and I really loved it. I really enjoyed working with people, creating this communication in music.
Yeah.
And of course, music was just part of it. This course I went into in Vienna was made of singers and pianists. So I specialized in vocal music and accompanying singers. So that's what I've been doing for some years. Then I stayed in Vienna at the Vienna Conservatory as a teacher, as an accompanist, which means working with people,
right,
with singers on their music, on their interpretation, accompanying concerts, productions. I did some theater music, musical theaters. It was quite varied. And yeah, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And then I met my wife, who is a Chilean, and came to live in Chile.
Came back to, wow, okay. That explains.
Yeah, so there was quite a change.
Yeah. So let's just go back a bit. So you did not start playing the piano until you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
So what about before that? What are some of your early memories before you discovered the piano?
Oh, wow. I was a social kid. I don't have too many memories from my early childhood. I grew up in Tel Aviv. It was a not very eventful childhood, I would say, at least emotionally. That's what it feels. It was stable. I was popular. I didn't have trouble in school, so in my general memory, it feels like a fine, untraumatic childhood.
Okay. What kind of things did you like to do as a little child?
I loved sports. I played football as a kid, and then when I grew up, I played basketball. Yeah, I loved moving around.
Okay.
I grew up before the electronic age, so my afternoon looked like going to the backyards of some of my classmates and playing all afternoon, and then going back home for
Mm-hmm.
dinner. I was pretty much outside and moving about a lot.
And what was your family? What did it look like?
My parents were both from Poland. So there's, of course, the generational trauma somewhere there in my history. They both survived the Holocaust. They lost parts of their families. My mother survived the war in Warsaw. So
Wow.
she was like always in fear of being caught. She had false papers as a Pole and not Jewish.
Okay.
My father left Israel before the war, so he was in England at the time. But yeah, the World War II is quite a
Yeah,
heavy load on this whole generation.
absolutely. Yes. Did you have an awareness of that your parents had escaped?
I had very general, I know the history, kind of the big facts of their lives and their families. They didn't talk about it much. Yeah, I know that my mother lost her brother and her father in the war. She came to Israel with her mother. They both lived in Warsaw during the war and went
Yeah.
to Israel after that.
Okay. Did your parents meet in Israel?
Yes,
That is very heavy. And even though they didn't talk about it, do you feel like it has carried over to you in any way?
I'm sure it did. There's actually an official syndrome of second generation Holocaust survivors. And I'm sure it did. It's part of the history that I feel in some way on my shoulders.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings?
I have an older brother.
Okay.
He
And
still
so,
lives in Israel right
oh
now.
gosh. Wow.
Not a very happy
No.
place to be at
Oh,
the
I'm
moment.
sorry. Yes. Yeah. I do want to touch on that after we go through your life a bit. There is some very tragic events happening in Israel right now as we're recording this. I was going to ask you about music in your family and the role that it may have played in healing for your parents and in your family when you were young. What do you think about this?
Both my parents had music and classical music as part of their heritage.
Okay.
Both of them played the piano a little bit. My father used to listen to music. He recorded music. He had these large long play tapes that he would record concerts from the radio. He had a whole collection of them. I heard classical music at home quite a bit.
Okay.
And yeah, they offered me to start playing the piano, and I said yes. I wasn't really this passionate kid like some musicians who are born musicians and this is what they do since they're 3 years old. It wasn't like that really. I didn't like practicing. I played little really. I was quick in reading music, so I could manage from one class to the next with very little practice. So
Yeah.
it actually took me a while to think of it as something that I could do professionally. I
Yeah.
enjoyed playing the piano, but that was it.
Okay. But you were also really into your sports. And what about school in general? Did you find yourself a good student? Did you enjoy school?
I was a reasonably good student without really trying. Luckily, I figured out what is required. I managed to do it without too much effort. I cannot say I enjoyed school. Actually, looking back, I think of school as a horrible waste of time. The, really,
Yeah.
there is so much you need to learn as a kid, and the
It
time
wasn't
that
there.
invested in learning totally useless things that really didn't make sense to me. It was just like what I was a complacent kid. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it made life easy for me, at least. So I could manage doing what was required without really being involved in it. But yeah, I think schools, as the rest of our society, requires a deep revision.
Yes, you're not the first person I've heard say that, and I agree. I was in education for my entire professional career, and I do believe it needs an overhaul for sure. So, when you were young, you actually had a sense of this, that it was a waste of time? Is that true?
But I don't know if I thought of it that way, but my life happened outside of school. School was
Yeah.
just the obligation. I had to do it. I had to try and make it little troublesome as possible. And
Yeah.
my interests, my passion, my relationships, my life actually happened in the after school
Right.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah, in your real life. So, what
Yeah.
is something in your life when you were, let's say, a teenager that is an interesting story? Did you ever do anything crazy, or can you think of any stories from that time when you were a teen, that coming of age time?
Yeah, I was kicked out of school in the year
Here we
before
go.
last because I published with a couple of friends I don't know what to call this. We made a publication with very unprofessional means. We printed a few copies of a journal that had some articles criticizing school, making fun of some teachers. It was a satirical, critical publication. It was innocent and revolutionary, and we were very convinced about it. And we were kicked out of school, the three of us who put this thing out. And I used the opportunity to go to a kibbutz, which is something that I've been wanting to do. So the last year of school, I did a kibbutz away from home. The other two kids, their parents made a scandal of it because they couldn't really kick us out for that. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous. We're supposedly in a democracy and we could speak even as school children. So
Right.
the other two kids were taken back into school, but I left. So that is one story of my rebellious adolescence.
I love that story. Okay. Yeah. So you were protesting, building on what you said, that school was useless in a lot of
Yeah, I
ways.
guess
And
at that point of my life, I was conscious of
you
this.
were. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. Were you looking for some sort of change to take place? Did you have an end game?
By this publication,
Yeah.
it was just to express
Yeah.
frustration and criticize what I thought
Hmm.
needed criticizing.
Hmm.
I didn't expect it to change anything, not really.
But you did it. You
Yeah.
did it. And that's really where the power lies. Did you have any support from other students?
Yes, the three of us, me with two of my close friends, were signed as the publishers, but the articles were written by a group of friends. So yeah,
So there were a lot of
it
people
was kind of
supporting this.
a group project.
Very interesting. So, can you explain what a kibbutz is for the listeners, please?
I can say what it was. The whole kibbutz movement has changed a lot in the last decades. It's not what it used to be. It started as a socialist village that received some land, they did agriculture, and the property was of the group. So in some places they shared their clothes and the food, and they had a dining room. In other places it was a little less communal, but the property of the establishment of the village was common. So they had their land together, their tools, their tractors, their whatever it is, and it started mainly as an agricultural movement,
Hmm. And so, what
and
did you do there?
inspired by the socialist European ideas.
So interesting. And so what was your role there if you were a
I went to
teen?
school. I
Oh,
went, and they received some kids from outside of this was part of the, it was possible to
mhm.
come as an outside kid
Okay.
just just to go through the last year of school.
Okay. Yeah. And did you have to participate in the agricultural work and did you
Yeah,
share?
yeah.
Yeah.
The kids did that, like 2 afternoons a week or something like that.
How does that experience at the kibbutz come into your life now? Did it influence you in some way, who you are now?
I was very happy to be away from home
Mm,
because it was an age, I was 17 probably. I wanted to be more independent than I could be at home. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, the idea of a community and the need for community stayed with me until today. I think we have arranged our society, our modern society, in a very alienated way. It's really
mm,
difficult to have a community of people. My friends, the people who are close to me emotionally, are all around the world. So I don't
mhm,
have a physical community around me of like-minded people.
mhm.
Yeah, I feel the need for that.
Yeah. And
Create
that seems
community in different ways. We are part of a community, and I've never seen you in person, and we live in different continents. So there are other possibilities now, but we still feel the need to create some kind of container that is bigger than ourselves.
that's right. We do. We always have that yearning to be a part of a community of sorts. So interesting. Yeah, I love that. And it seems to be a theme in your life because you talked about how you didn't want to be alone in playing the piano. You wanted to be with others, and then you were in the kibbutz. And so after the kibbutz, you graduated from high school. And what happened next? What did you do next?
I did military service in Israel. This was obligatory, and
Yeah.
everybody did it. I was I had a knee operation just before joining the army, after I finished school. So I had a low medical profile, and so my military service was sitting in an office. I didn't have to shoot anybody, luckily, or get
Yes.
shot at. Yeah, so this was like a not very agreeable working place. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
How long do you have to be in service?
3 years.
3 years. And that's still required today.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Things have changed. I haven't lived in Israel since 1986,
Oh,
so
okay.
over 30 years. Things are different, but yeah, it is still obligatory.
My daughter
Yeah.
went on the birthright trip to Israel when she was probably 19 years old or 20 years old. And so she found it profound. She really loved the experience. And they were guided by young members of the military the whole time they were there. So people her age who were in the military, they were
Hmm.
their constant like companions while they were there because they had to have protection too. And it was just an amazing experience for her, but it's a very interesting place in the world. My kids are half Jewish and hearing about the that land and what life was like there is very interesting, I think, because it is a place where there's a sense of constant need to protect and defend.
It certainly felt like that when I was a kid. This was the, how shall I put it, the accepted truth
Yeah.
that we are under siege, that we have to protect ourselves.
So you felt that
That
growing up.
that's what I grew up with.
Yeah. Because there were attacks going on all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. When I was 9, there was the 6 Days War
Oh,
in 67. Yeah, so
yeah.
Israel was basically attacked from all directions
Yeah. And they
and
survived.
survived. And this was a pretty big victory in which all of these, what is now known as the occupied territories, depending on who names them, And things changed since then.
Yeah.
So now we're still occupying these territories with millions of Palestinians, and this has a cost
Yes.
that you can now these
Yes.
days see.
Yeah. It's a heavy situation, And
Yeah.
it's interesting that after all this time that people haven't been able to just coexist peacefully. Interesting.
They
So,
seem less and less prepared to coexist.
yeah, it's complex. And I don't even pretend to understand it. I don't know all the details. I'm for love and peace and acceptance. And I hope that we can get to a place where we don't have war and terror and things like this happening. But
Yeah, I hope so.
yeah, in any case. So you went to college then? Is this when you went to study piano after you were finished with the kibbutz and graduated high school?
I actually went to the university in Tel Aviv before that.
Okay.
A lot of interesting and not very useful things like English literature and the general humanities studies.
Okay. So
Some,
people go into the military for 3 years. So you're about 21 when you started university. Is that a good estimate?
yeah, 21, 22 probably.
Okay. And then how much time did you spend there studying in that way?
Oh, 3 years, I think.
Mhm.
Three,
And
3.5 probably.
did you feel like you didn't know what you were going to do, that the things you were studying weren't going to apply to any profession? What was your sense?
I went to study things that looked like fun, but not a profession. I had my apartment. Did some work. I worked in a hospital in Tel Aviv, so I could do shifts and regulate it with my studies. Yeah.
Mhm. At what point did you decide that you wanted to play the piano professionally?
During that time, I started playing with people.
Oh,
I had these friends around me who were musicians and could use some accompaniment. Yeah, I did that for a while, played with my cellist friend, with the neighbor who was a singer, and a couple more people. And it dawned on me that this could be something that could be done professionally.
hmm.
And also, I wanted to leave Israel. So it came together. I wanted to get out. And the possibility to learn this in particular, like a specialization as an accompanist, didn't exist in Israel. So I started figuring out where this could be done.
And that's when you decided to go to Vienna.
So, yeah, I was accepted into the Vienna Conservatory and studied there and had to learn German. So in the beginning, I was kind of trying to figure out what was happening. My main teacher, my piano teacher, was a gringo and was an American who lived in Vienna, could speak English with him. But yeah, it was great. I really loved the studying in this way. There were singers and pianists in my class, so I had to accompany singers constantly. This was part of homework, and I've been studying their music, classical singing, song, the classical song form and opera, and had to study lots of new repertoire. I went to the opera 2 or 3 times a week, the Vienna Opera, which is one of the best in the world. And they have lots of standing places. So they were very cheap. They were like $1, and you could stand, lean on a little thing there, and great places where you can really be close to the stage and pay $1 or $1.50
And
and
see the world's best opera.
see the world's best opera.
Oh boy. You developed your talents there.
Yeah. And Vienna is a good place to study music. It's really a world center
Yeah, that's what it's known for, right?
as far as music is concerned.
Right.
Yes.
Great. What about the other things that were going on in your life at that time?
What else was going on?
Are you married now?
No, I married at a very late age. I met
Oh,
my
okay.
wife years later. I was 40. And my
Oh,
wife is Chilean.
okay.
I was never married. I didn't have kids before that.
So after Vienna, where did you go?
To Chile.
Ah,
Well,
okay.
when I finished my studies in Vienna, I was accepted as a teacher at the conservatory. So I stayed in Vienna for like 15 years almost.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I've been working there as an accompanist
Yeah.
at the Vienna Conservatory.
Okay.
Again, a very
And
good
that
place.
was for 15 years. And then, so what brought you to Chile?
My wife.
And where did you meet? Tell us the story about how you met.
We met in Paris. Actually,
Oh,
my wife's mother is Polish and knew my mother 30 years back. So there was some connection. They were in contact. My mother went to Israel, her mother went to Chile, and they never met again. But they were in some contact. We knew each other by writing emails.
you were writing emails with your wife,
With my future wife,
your
yes.
future wife. Were you introduced through your parents?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So
There
you were
was the
friends.
family connection.
Okay.
And at some point, she went to Europe for a visit. She was in Paris. So I took a plane from Vienna to Paris and we met in
In the
Paris.
city of love.
Yes.
Aw, that's beautiful. And then you decided to start a relationship from
A
there,
new life.
to change your relationship into more than a friendship. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so when did you move to Chile?
This was 2001. So I've been here for over 20 years now.
Over 20 years. What do you love
Yeah.
about living in Chile?
Coming to Chile and especially to my wife's circle of friends, this was her home. It was a little bit like coming home. I really didn't like living in Vienna. Vienna was
Mm.
wonderful for making music and for having a work as a musician, but I didn't really feel well in Vienna. Vienna is something little very hard, very difficult to penetrate, and not very friendly,
Oh,
really. So,
okay.
so coming to Chile was a little bit like coming back home.
Aw,
It's a little more like Tel Aviv, more
okay.
chaotic, more unorganized, and people were more accessible to me. It was a good change.
Yeah. And you've lived there now for so long. And do you have children?
Yes, my wife had a small child, so she grew up with me, and then we had another child who is now 20 and
Wow.
traveling
Great.
in Europe.
And what did you do when you first got to Chile in terms of your job?
I found a job at the university not far from here in Valparaiso, and I worked there for quite a while.
Mhm. But then at some point you decided to make a change, right?
Yeah.
So tell us
So,
about that. What happened?
so parallel to my musical career, I was always, for almost 30 years now, a Feldenkrais practitioner.
Okay.
Feldenkrais is this method of somatic education, working with movement, mindful movement. I did the training when I finished my studies in Vienna, and I actually took this training for myself. I didn't think of changing to another career, but I needed to look at how I move, how I use my body, how I use myself as a musician. I had some back pain trouble that was in the background of that. Like I needed to perfect the way I was acting
Yeah,
in the
your
world.
physical body, right?
Yeah. So I joined this training. I didn't really know. I knew Feldenkrais. I've been taking classes. I had a friend who was a practitioner, so we had a group of friends taking classes in Israel once a week. So I knew the method. I knew it was nice. You lie on the floor, you move slowly, you pay attention to small details, you change things. It feels good. But
Mm.
really, when I decided to take the professional training, I had no idea why, really.
Mm.
I knew it was nice and it's good for me. But the training was a commitment. It was 2 months a year, the whole day. It was expensive.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know, intuition.
Definitely. So that became your primary focus after a certain amount of time. And what
When
is,
30 years later,
yeah,
I
30 years
decided
later.
to quit. During this time, I always had some groups. I gave some classes. I worked individually with some people. It was always there. And it was always good for me. It's a way of reorganizing myself and stay on some path of improvement. So
Mm-hmm.
not sink into old habits that are bad for me. Because being a professional musician is hard work.
Yes.
Any small thing that is not perfect can become really harmful because you repeat it
Yeah.
constantly, because it's always the same position, the same
Right.
kind of movement. Yeah, it was very useful for me as a musician for many
Okay.
years. And then at some point, after 30 years of being an accompanist, I had enough.
Mm.
It just happened. I really enjoyed it. It was a great line of work. I was very happy to do it all these years. And the last year of in the university, I just didn't want it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was tired. I don't want to study anymore, new music.
A lot of people get to that point in their lives where they're ready for something new. They're ready to go to the next level and whatever that is. And oftentimes that does have something to do with internal development, which it feels like the Feldenkrais work is a lot about getting in tune. Can you just give us an overview of what it means, what it does?
Wow, tricky, because it is disguised as a body work.
Okay.
You work with movement,
Yeah.
you look at small details, you improve small things in the very foundational movements. So you look at how you breathe, how you look at your posture, at how you hold yourself, how you deal with gravity, how you reach with your arms, how you turn, very foundational things. So it's like the movements that are in the basis of anything you do in life. So when you improve small details in that,
Mm.
you actually improve your life because it is present
Yeah.
everywhere in everything you do. But really, it's not about movement. The movement is just a field that is easy to access. It gives you access to learning and to improvement. So really, when you go into it, you figure out that it's very holistic. It's about becoming a better person.
Oh,
It really permeates all areas of life.
wow. That's profound. And you say that it's something that only takes 3 minutes a day?
A typical Feldenkrais class, the group class, it takes 40 minutes to an hour, and people come to your studio, lie on the floor, and go through a sequence of movements. So you develop an idea with variations and with playing with it into a class. So that's the way Feldenkrais worked over the years. That's how Feldenkrais taught. Feldenkrais, the person,
Okay.
who developed the method. And so I left the university and started teaching Feldenkrais as a full time just about a year before the pandemic. So I was
Oh,
still
wow.
struggling to figure out what it means to be independent, to be an entrepreneur. I had no idea that I was actually becoming uh,
An entrepreneur.
having a business. I
Right.
didn't
It
think of
creeps
it
up
this
on
way
you.
at all. I had no idea what it meant. And
Yeah.
then the pandemic hit, and I couldn't give classes anymore. So I had to move online and try to figure out what to do with it. And because I was a new entrepreneur and found out that I have no idea how to manage my time, and started to go into the whole science of habit building,
Mm.
and got into this. What am I doing every day? How am I using my time? How do I know when I'm working, when I have stopped working? I really had no idea. I was totally lost about organizing myself. It was the first time in my life that I wasn't an employee.
Mm-hmm.
As an employee, I didn't have to think about it. I had my timetable. It was a given. So this was new, and then with the pandemic, it was again a very new situation. So I started with this experiment of doing something that works only online. Nobody would come to my studio for 3 minutes a day.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, but it works very well
Right.
online. So I had a group of people, like a beta group. I started creating these 3 minute sessions, recording them one a day, and started sending them to this group of people. And it worked. They loved it. It seemed to really do something that is different from going to a class once a week and lying on the floor and exploring yourself for an hour. This is a more extended exploration, and then you go back to your life and forget about it, or you can
Right.
forget about it. When you go into this state of mind every day, it's different. It becomes a habit. So I was building the habit creation exploration that I've been playing with at the time, together with the Feldenkrais method. And so I thought, what can one do? One of the things I learned about creating new habit is make it really small. Don't get ambitious, because it won't work. If you
Right.
want an hour a day, you don't have that hour. It's not part of your life. You make it 3 minutes, it's possible, even when you're busy. So
Right.
that was the idea. It was an experiment. I tried it. I kept going as the group was advancing. I kept creating more sessions, and each session is different because the explorations in movement that you can do are really infinite. I could go on forever,
Wow.
just playing with different things or in different ways. You come back to the same themes, but from different angles. Over time, I've created a whole year of sessions, 365 sessions. Then I
Wow.
stopped, but I have this big library of different sessions that have now become a membership.
Okay.
So you sign up, you get a session a day. Your commitment is 3 minutes a day,
And
and
you change your life. You
that's
can
the
change your
idea.
life. What are the benefits? What can it do for you?
For one thing, you explore yourself in movement and you improve little things. So in 3 minutes, what I found out is that in 3 minutes, something happens. So
Mm.
after 3 minutes, you notice a small change. You do this exploration, it requires attention. It's not mechanical.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
you really pay attention to what you're doing and you do something. And you notice after 3 minutes that something changed. So what happens is that over time, it's not a big change, it's very tiny, but you do it every day. So then
Yeah.
it accumulates and it grows exponentially. And the thing that is particular to this new method is that it becomes a habit. So it is really
Mm.
something that you do every day. You stop your rat race,
Yeah.
the your regular life in which you always have to you do things because you need results. You
Mm-hmm.
cook because you need the food. You make your bed because you need it made. You brush your teeth because you need it. We always do things throughout our day for a specific reason and result. So when you just stop that and do something that without expecting anything, just looking at yourself,
Mm.
you change your state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into the state of mind of self-exploration every day, it becomes part of your life also. So you become more attentive throughout the day, how I do things, how I present myself, how I manifest in the world. It is something that most people don't ever do.
Yeah. Self-exploration is really the key. I think it's like the gateway to self-actualization. It's the
Yeah,
gateway to success. Who comes to you to do this practice, this daily practice? Are they musicians? Are they artists? Are they people who just want to improve their lives?
just I think this is a coincidence because this was the first mailing list I had. There were people who knew about Feldenkrais, who came to me through a Feldenkrais summit in which I
Mm.
participated. Most of them were senior people, I'd say over 55, a great majority was women. These are people who tend to be more inclined to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
I don't think my work is specific for this audience, but this is the audience I've had so far. So most of them, I'd say, my typical client, senior woman who has this inclination to stop and look at herself, and usually with some kind of spiritual tendency. And this is probably because it is my tendency. It is not really. Feldenkrais was himself, the man, was a scientist. He refused to go into spiritual talk. He didn't use this language. I think it is very present in the work, but you can look at it from different angles. He looked at it from the point of view of the nervous system.
Okay, yeah.
I look at it much more through the lens of spirit.
Interesting.
The mind.
Yeah. Do you think there's a connection between the spirit and the nervous system?
Totally. There are just different angles from which you can look at the same thing. If you look at reality, you can describe it in terms of the physical, the nervous system, the brain, as an object, or you can describe it from the point of view of the mind, which is not an object. The mind it's a different sphere of reality, but it's the same thing. You look at the same thing, only describe it differently. You use a different language, you use a different lens to look. And spirit is another layer of understanding and looking at the same reality.
Yeah. If you think of the brain as inside, the mind as a little outside, and then the spirit.
The mind is not an object.
Consciousness is not something we can really say where it is.
Physical world.
So interesting. I find that really fascinating. And so how has Feldenkrais changed your life?
So throughout my musical career, it allowed me to survive and thrive.
Yep.
Playing
because
the piano.
Of the physical and the repetitive movements. It
really helped me perfect my way of using my body, and also it really improved my presence. I think it was much more than just the movement. My presence on stage, my way of communicating with people really changed and became more whole and more conscious. I had more clarity of what I'm doing, how I manifest in the world, and how I can change things, because it's a great tool to change.
Yeah. Is it about self-healing?
I think self-healing is a byproduct of Feldenkrais work, because Feldenkrais is not a therapy. It's a pedagogy, or what's the word in English? It's a learning system.
Yeah.
You use learning, and it is very often very healing.
Okay.
Most people come to Feldenkrais because something hurts. Back pain, knee pain, neck pain. They've tried everything, nothing works, so they come to a Feldenkrais practitioner, and the Feldenkrais practitioner doesn't treat the symptoms, because we are not therapists. We look at the patterns. What does this person do, the whole person, that includes this pain, and how can we change those patterns a little bit so that the pain wouldn't be a necessary part of this new pattern?
Yeah.
So very often it is therapeutic. It has therapeutic effect.
Can you take us through a little snippet of an exercise?
Of course, we can do something like a 3-minute session.
I would love it. Okay.
As a sample.
Yes.
Okay, so you're ready to move?
Me? Yes.
So we'll.
Do I have to stand up?
You're my guinea pig.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do it on the chair, given that we're sitting. So, but just move forward on the chair so that you're not leaning back. So you hold yourself upright without trying to do anything. Okay, just once. Tilt your head so that your right ear comes closer to your right shoulder. And then the other side. Bring the left ear closer to the left shoulder. So try not to turn. You're not turning, you're just side bending thing. Only sideways. Okay, you do it once just to see, compare the sides, see how far you can go. Okay, now we'll stay with one side. So again, bring your right ear to your right shoulder and come back to the middle a few times. So you're clearly curving your neck sideways, right? Okay, so now let's involve some more of you in it. So as you tilt your right ear to the right, bring your right shoulder a little lower and your left shoulder a little higher. So you're still tilting sideways, you're not turning.
That feels better, actually.
Yeah, so you also use a larger part of your spine. We're now involving the chest in the movement, right?
Oh.
So it probably becomes a little larger.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're going to do something a little trickier. So as you can hang the right arm to the floor next to your thigh so that when you tilt, the hand comes a little closer to the floor, right?
Okay.
Now, as you do that, with the same movement, also lift the right sitting bone or your right hip a little toward the shoulder.
Okay.
So you push the floor with your right foot.
Right.
You move the pelvis a little bit to lean more on the left side.
Okay.
So what are we doing? We're bringing the shoulder and the hip closer together. Your right side kind of compacts.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're using now the whole length of the spine in a sideways, a side curve. Okay. So one more variation. Now lift your left arm somewhere above your head. So it doesn't have to be stretched. And let your right arm hang to the floor.
Okay.
So we're going to do the same movement. And now as your right hand comes closer to the floor, bring the left hand a little closer to the ceiling. Don't stretch, don't use force. You just
let it
move a little. Now we're using the whole of the body. So you can notice that the right side, your ribs, the whole right side becomes shorter, and the left side lengthens. You can feel the ribs opening on your left side as you do this. Okay?
Yeah.
Do this 2 or 3 more times. It's like an accordion in the rib cage.
Yeah.
One side contracts, the other side opens.
The ribs are supposed to be flexible, right? Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So stay in the middle and just once tilt your head to the right ear to the right shoulder, tilt the left ear to the left shoulder, compare, see if you can feel something different.
Yeah.
This is it.
Ooh.
Do you feel anything different?
I do. For sure I do. I feel like I have a need to do it on the left side. But
yeah,
I feel an opening. I definitely felt an opening. It feels great. It really does. Feels fantastic. Interesting.
So this is a sample of what you can do in 3 minutes. Just explore a very specific thing, maybe 2 or 3 variations, and this is it. You have the recording. You can do the same, reversing the instructions on the other side. But it's interesting to feel the asymmetry for a little while. Then it will go away, but you feel that something happened.
Yeah. Yes, I do feel it.
Something changed.
Yeah, something changed. It's reminding me of yoga. Not that the movements are the same, but in yoga, I've been a yogi for many years, and you're always wanting to repeat the movements on the other side and get the balance. So it's what I'm experiencing right now, is that I'm feeling like it's sitting with the imbalance is really an interesting thing to do. I think it's a good exercise for me.
Yeah, I actually recommend to stay with if it's not uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable, go the other way and equalize. If it's not uncomfortable, stay with this asymmetry for a little while. We don't always work only to one side. This is a very particular one-sided exercise.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to notice something opened, the ribs opened
Right.
on the left side,
It
something
is
changed maybe on
interesting.
the sitting bones, that your pelvis is not,
Yeah.
doesn't feel the same, and the tilting of the head
Yeah.
probably
And to
felt
be
different
aware,
in the end.
yeah, the awareness of those things in your body that you just walk around all the time, not noticing. And your point about perpetuating those body positions and little movements that we do that are actually causing us harm, and we don't realize, because we don't realize that it could be something really small that's causing your pain or discomfort, that
Yeah.
tiny little thing to tweak rather than looking for some big solution.
Yes, and the beautiful thing that I really love about the Feldenkrais method, and this uh, is reflected in what I do in persistent growth in this kind of work, is that it is not, it has no dogma at all.
Mm,
I didn't teach you anything like this is the right way to do something.
yeah.
It has
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to do with the right way. It is
Mm,
an open exploration. I
mm,
just lead you through some movements so that you feel something. And
mhm,
this is how we learn. This is something that Feldenkrais found out, and he really explored a lot what small children do. Like really in the first years of life,
mm,
this is how we learn. We don't learn by following a model, by anybody teaching us the right way to do things. We learn by exploring.
mm.
The result of this kind of exploration is improvement, because
Oh,
something has opened up that wasn't there just by
yeah.
paying attention and doing something a little bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is a learning process. I'm not teaching you anything, but you're learning.
Oh, wow.
And this is really beautiful.
That is really beautiful. It's quite profound to think of it that way, because we're always looking for dogma, right? We're looking for
Yeah.
somebody to give us the answers. We're looking to learn rather than going and just exploring the body, self exploration, not just in the inner self, but actually the physical self. Wow, that's really interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah,
I love it.
I've been sitting in many singing classes. When I was working with students, with singers, singing students,
Hmm.
I've been accompanying at the piano in class many times. I had many teachers and many methods, and
Hmm.
very often, this is the way teaching works. This is why I find school also pretty much useless. You get the right answer, and you have to give the right answer. So also in learning a skill like singing, very often the way teachers think is, I'm going to show you how I do it because I know how to
Hmm.
do it, and you
Yeah.
have to imitate me. It is a very poor way of learning, and I've seen lots of students struggling because they weren't allowed the exploration. They were led
Hmm.
through this very thin line of the right answer.
Hmm.
It is not very helpful, really, as a learning method.
Hmm.
And I've seen teachers who led their students through lots of exploration of like doing silly things are is very instructive. It is a very good way to learn, that is
Yeah.
called play. We
Yeah.
eliminated it completely from school or from schooling.
I know. We have,
And
right?
this, what we did now, and this way of exploring yourself is playing.
Yeah.
We're just
Mm.
playing with what's possible.
Hmm.
And this is how we learn. And it is very evident to me that learning occurs with this
Yeah.
kind of thing. I found I improve the way I use myself by exploring possibilities. Just
Hmm.
open horizons, and my nervous system, if you want to think of it this way,
Hmm.
knows how to choose what is more efficient, more requires less effort, doesn't have
Yeah.
resistance.
I love that. It's a way of listening to your body and trusting that it knows what you need.
Yes, it's the way we learn. You look at
Hmm.
children from 0 to 2 years old, where the most enormous learning we ever do in our lives. We are born without any skills. We don't know how to do anything voluntary. And by 2, we can usually speak, run, stand on our feet, jump, roll, turn. All of the basic skills are there.
Yeah.
We didn't follow a program.
No, that's true.
We didn't need the Ministry of Education for that.
No, we did not. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Wow, that is fascinating. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. I'm totally hooked. It's really interesting. Wow. Oh my gosh, Michael. Wow. So thank you for sharing that with us. I love it. I want to know, just to bring it to a close, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned in your life?
Building on what we've been talking about, it is a choice that we can make or not make to step on to the path of learning, of growth, to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep becoming better. It doesn't happen by itself. Most of us in the adult life, we just build on the patterns that are already learned and we keep doing the same things. So it is necessary to make a choice and give it a time and a space in your life. For example, 3 minutes, it's enough. Because it's a path that you step into it. 3 minutes won't change your life, but 3 minutes every day will put you on that path that otherwise you wouldn't be there. So it's a choice to step onto that path of learning, and it's possible at any age to keep growing, changing, and becoming better.
That's beautiful. I love what you just said. 3 minutes won't change your life, but 3 minutes a day will. That's profound.
If you want my bigger vision in my more visionary moments, I see this as the way, probably the only way to change the world that needs changing, quite obviously.
Yeah.
We need more awareness, more consciousness, step onto this path in which we become better, and this irradiates to the outside world.
It has a butterfly effect,
consciousness,
right?
Individually, that will create a change of
radiates out. Yep. It's
globally.
It has a potential for that. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we need. We need more of that positive energy making its way and having a ripple effect so that we can change the world for the better. Yeah. What about your blessings? What do you think are the things you're most grateful for in life?
I really feel privileged for finding along my path many instances and many input for this kind of change. I did lots of other stuff. Feldenkrais is one of many tools that I've collected on my way, just ways to look into myself and find better ways to be in the world.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for this. It was there for me that I could see it and use it so that I could go a long way.
That's true. I'm grateful for that too. And so my last question, if you could just try to answer with one word, what is the most important thing?
Awareness.
Yeah, great answer. I love that. Oh, man. Wow. Thank you, Michael. It has been such a pleasure learning about Feldenkrais and hearing about your life story. Thank you so much for opening your heart to us.
Thank you for inviting me. It was lovely talking to you.